The Iranian regime called on young people to form human chains around the country's power plants, as President Trump warns a whole civilization will die in Iran if the country's theocratic regime doesn't make a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by his 8 p.m. Eastern deadline. U.S. and Israeli strikes escalated even ahead of Mr. Trump's deadline, with Israel acknowledging attacks on Iranian railways and bridges, and the U.S. launching fresh strikes on the oil export hub of Karg Island. At least 18 civilians were killed by the strikes in one province alone Tuesday, according to an Iranian official. Mr. Trump has indicated he will not give Iran more time to make a deal, but he said Monday he believes the regime is negotiating in good faith, and he called a set of proposals Tehran sent in response to his administration's 15-point peace proposal a significant step. An Iranian-backed militia in Iraq said Tuesday that American journalist Shelley Kittleson, who was abducted in Baghdad a week ago, would be released on the condition that she leave Iraq immediately. American journalist Shelley Kittleson has been freed, confirming reports from earlier Tuesday, sources told CBS News. Two Iraqi government sources and another source familiar with the situation confirmed the journalist, who was kidnapped in Iraq 1 week ago, has been freed. An Iraqi paramilitary group called Kataib Hezbollah had Kittleson's name on a list of American journalists to target for kidnapping, per multiple sources familiar. The Israeli military on Tuesday expressed regret over collateral damage to a synagogue in Tehran caused by an overnight strike that it said was targeting a senior Iranian commander. Last night, Tuesday, the IDF struck a senior commander in the emergency headquarters, Khatam al-Anbiya, of the Iranian terror regime, an Israeli military spokesperson said in response to a question from AFP. The IDF regrets the collateral damage to the synagogue and emphasizes that the strike was targeted at a senior military target within the regime's armed forces, not at any place of worship. The military said the results of the strike were under review, adding that steps were taken to mitigate harm to civilians, including the use of precise munitions and aerial surveillance. Earlier on Tuesday, Iran's Shargh newspaper and Mehr news agency reported that the Rafi Nia synagogue in central Tehran had been completely destroyed. The U.S. State Department is advising Americans to reconsider participating in Hajj this year due to risks in Saudi Arabia associated with the Iran war. Per the Saudi Arabia Travel Advisory, and due to the ongoing security situation and intermittent travel disruptions, we advise reconsidering participation in Hajj this year, the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh said in a security alert Tuesday. Hajj, an annual Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca, is taking place this year at the end of May. U.S. citizens are being encouraged to reconsider travel to Saudi Arabia. For those looking to depart the country, commercial flights are available and Saudi airspace remains open, with frequent air traffic restrictions to address continued missile and drone threats, the security alert said. Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dammam airports remain open and operational, but travelers are advised to check their flight status directly with the airline due to possible delays and cancellations. The embassy said U.S. citizens who are still in Saudi Arabia should heed the advice of the Saudi government early warning system, although it noted that the system is not consistently reliable in providing timely warnings. The State Department also said it is tracking reports of threats at locations where Americans gather. We advise U.S. citizens that hotels and other gathering points, including U.S. businesses, may be potential targets, it said. House Democratic leaders called for the chamber to return Tuesday amid President Trump's latest rhetoric, calling him completely unhinged. His statement threatening to eradicate an entire civilization shocks the conscience and requires a decisive congressional response. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democratic Whip Katherine Clark, Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar, and other members of the leadership team said in a statement. The Democratic leaders stressed that the House must come back into session immediately and vote to end this reckless war of choice in the Middle East before Donald Trump plunges our country into World War III. The House is currently on recess and isn't set to return until April 14th. Last month, the chamber voted down an effort to limit the president's ability to take further military action against Iran without congressional support. The Democrats criticized their GOP colleagues in the statement, claiming Republicans have enabled and excused Donald Trump's deeply dangerous and extreme behavior. Enough is enough. It's time for House Republicans to put patriotic duty over party loyalty and join Democrats in stopping this madness. French President Emmanuel Macron said Tuesday that a couple who were jailed in Iran for years were free and on their way back to France. Cécile Kohler and Jacques Paris are free and on their way back to France after 3.5 years of detention in Iran. This is a relief for all of us, and of course for their families, Macron said in a social media post. He thanked Oman's government for their mediation efforts. Kohler and Paris were held in Iran in prison conditions that French officials had likened to torture and on charges that the French government always said were without foundation. Iran practices a deliberate policy of state hostages, the French Foreign Ministry said last year as the pair remained in detention. All French nationals who find themselves there expose themselves to a risk of arrest and arbitrary detention, including tourists, for the sole reason of having French nationality. Russia and China on Tuesday vetoed a UN security resolution aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz that had been repeatedly watered down in hopes those two countries would abstain. The vote, 11 in favor, 2 against, and 2 abstentions, took place just hours before an 8 p.m. Eastern deadline set by President Trump for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face the destruction of its power plants and bridges. It's doubtful the resolution, even if it had been adopted, would have impacted the war because it was significantly weakened to try to get Russia and China to abstain rather than veto it. The initial proposal from Bahrain would have authorized countries to use all necessary means, UN wording that would include military action, to ensure transit through the Strait of Hormuz and deter attempts to close it. After Russia, China, and France, all vetoing countries on the 15-member Security Council, expressed opposition to approving the use of force, the resolution was revised to eliminate all references to offensive action. It would have authorized only defensive means necessary. But the resolution was further weakened to eliminate any reference to Security Council authorization, which is an order for action, and to limit its provisions to the Strait of Hormuz. Previous drafts had included adjacent waters. The resolution vetoed Tuesday only strongly encourages states interested in the use of commercial maritime routes in the Strait of Hormuz to coordinate efforts defensive in nature, commensurate with the circumstances, to contribute to ensuring the safety and security of navigation across the strait. The resolution also demanded that Iran immediately halt attacks on merchant and commercial vessels and stop impeding their freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz and attacking civilian infrastructure. An Iranian-backed militia in Iraq said Tuesday that American journalist Shelley Kittleson, who was abducted in Baghdad a week ago, would be released on the condition that she leave Iraq immediately. Iraqi's Interior Ministry announced last week that a foreign journalist was kidnapped by unknown individuals, and 2 sources told CBS News it was Kittleson who was taken. The ministry said Iraqi security forces had managed to arrest 1 suspect and seize a vehicle used in the abduction. Alex Plitzis, Kittleson's designated point of contact in the U.S. and a CNN national security analyst, confirmed to CBS News that Kittleson was kidnapped, and he said the U.S. government had warned her about a specific threat by the Iranian-backed paramilitary group Kataib Hezbollah, which was allegedly looking to kidnap or kill female journalists. It was Kataib Hezbollah that announced her release in a post on its Telegram messaging channel on Tuesday. Her whereabouts were not immediately clear. Plitzis said Kittleson had been advised that her name was on a list in Kataib Hezbollah's possession, and a second source confirmed that she had been told of a risk, but that she thought it was likely false information. Kittleson was contacted multiple times with warnings of threats against her, including as recently as the night before she was abducted, a U.S. official told CBS News.